Elementary Lessons in Cookery by Mary L. Wade. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. An outline of 3 lessons. Lesson 8. Quick Doughs and Batters. Quick doughs and batters can be made light by the mixture of acid and alkali. When they are united, moistened, and heated, they set free a gas called carbon dioxide. Soda is the alkali commonly used, but the gas cannot escape freely until this is mixed with an acid and liquid. The most common acid used is cream of tartar, which with soda and a little flour or cornstarch constitutes the best baking powders. Other acids used with soda are sour milk, molasses, and sometimes vinegar or lemon juice. A mixture stiff enough to be kneaded or handled on a board is a dough. General directions for soft doughs. Carefully sift all dry ingredients together when baking powder is used, so that it may be free from lumps and mixed with the flour. Always add liquid by degrees and cut it into the flour with a knife. Handle dough as little as possible. Flour must be sifted before measuring. Batters. Batters are thin mixtures of flour and liquid. They are made light by the admixture of air or gas, and by quick cooking before the air has a chance to escape. Air at 70 degrees expands to about 3 times its volume when exposed to the temperature of a hot oven. As the mixture heats in cooking, the expansion of the air in the batter makes it light and porous. We entangle air in batters by beating the mixture thoroughly, by beating air into eggs, and by the gas obtained by the use of an acid with an alkaline carbonate. There are several degrees of thickness in batters. Thin batters have about the consistency of thin cream. Thick batters are like thick cream. Still thicker batters are stiff enough to keep shape when poured from a spoon. To illustrate the different methods of making batters light, the following recipes are good. Breakfast puffs. 1 cup of milk, 1 cup of cold water, 2 cups of flour. Mix the milk and water together and pour slowly onto the flour. When all are mixed together, smooth, beat 5 minutes with the Dover egg beater. Bake in hissing hot buttered gem pans 35 minutes. Popovers. 1/2 a cup of entire wheat flour, 1/2 a cup of white flour, 1 cup of milk, 1 egg, salt. Mix the salt and the flour. Add a little of the milk and stir till smooth. Add the remainder of the milk and the egg beaten light. Beat well and bake in a hot oven 1/2 an hour. Griddle cakes. 1 cup of graham meal, 1 cup of white flour, 1 teaspoonful of salt, 1 1/2 cups of sour milk, 4 teaspoonfuls of melted butter, 3/4 a teaspoonful of soda. Sift dry ingredients together. Add a little milk and mix thoroughly to press out the lumps. When all the milk is used and the batter is smooth, add the butter and beat it well. Pour by spoonfuls onto a slightly greased griddle, smoking hot. When brown on one side, turn. Serve very hot. Tea cakes. 2 1/2 cups of flour, 1/4 a cup of sugar, 3 teaspoonfuls of baking powder, 1 teaspoonful of salt, sifted together. Beat 1 egg light, add to it 1 cup of milk and 2 tablespoonfuls of melted butter or drippings. Add this to the dry mixture and beat well. Fill greased muffin pans 2/3 full and bake 1/2 an hour. Gingerbread. 1/2 a cup of molasses, 1/2 a tablespoonful of ginger, 1/4 a teaspoonful of salt, 1/2 a teaspoonful of soda, 1 tablespoonful of dripping, 1/4 a cup of boiling water, 1 cup of flour. Sift the ginger, salt, and soda into the molasses, add the dripping melted in the hot water, then the flour, and beat well. Lesson 9. Cakes and pastry cake. General directions. 1. See that the fire is in the right condition, that no fresh coal be needed while the cake is baking. 2. Have the pans buttered and dredged with flour or lined with buttered or oiled paper. 3. Have all ingredients together ready to measure. 4. Have measuring cups, spoons, egg beater, etc. in readiness. There are 2 kinds of cakes, butter cakes and sponge cakes. All cakes are a variety of these 2. In making butter cakes, first cream the butter and add the sugar gradually. Beat the eggs very light and add then the flour in which the baking powder is sifted and milk alternately, unless special directions are given with a recipe. Always sift the flour before measuring. Have the butter where it will be softened, but not melted or heated. In making sponge cakes where no baking powder is used, beat first the yolks very light, then add the sugar, then the flour and the whites beaten very stiff. Do not beat after adding the flour and whites, only mix the ingredients. Where baking powder and a liquid are used, the egg may first be beaten very light, then add the sugar and liquid, and at last the flour and baking powder, but do not beat. Bake cakes on the bottom of the oven. Thin cakes require a hotter oven than those baked in thick loaves. Butter cakes require a hotter oven than sponge cakes. Divide the time of baking into 4 parts. The first quarter it should rise and be full of bubbles, but not brown. The second quarter it should be spotted with brown and the bubbles burst. The third quarter it should be light brown all over. The last quarter it should be shrinking from the sides of the pan. Never slam the oven door while baking, but open and close the door softly. Pastry. 1 1/2 cups of flour, 3 tablespoonfuls of drippings, 3 tablespoonfuls of butter, cold water enough to moisten. Sift the salt with the flour. Rub the drippings into the flour with the tips of the fingers. Mix into a stiff dough with a little very cold water. Put the dough on to a floured board. Pat and roll into a long, narrow strip. Spread on the butter and fold in 3. Turn quarter round, pat well out again, then fold into 3 again. Turn quarter round again, then roll out to 1/4 an inch thick and roll over and over like a jelly roll. Cut in 2 pieces, making one piece a little larger than the other. Do not handle any more than necessary. Have everything cold. Apple pie. Wipe and pare the apples, cut into 8s and remove the cores. Allow 1 tablespoonful of sugar to each apple, unless very tart. Then allow a little more. Cover the plate with the crust rolled thin. Fill 3/4 full with the apples. Add the sugar and a little cinnamon or nutmeg. Put on more apples till the dish is filled. Wet the edges of the pastry with cold water. Cover loosely with the pastry and press firmly on the edge. Cut 2 or 3 small gashes on the top. Bake in a hot oven till the apples are soft. For rhubarb or berry pies, do not use a lower crust, but make in a deep pie plate. Put a strip of pastry around the edge of the plate and proceed the same as for apple pies. Rhubarb pie. Wash, wipe, and cut the stalks into 1/2 inch pieces. Allow 1/3 a cup of sugar to each cup of rhubarb. Custard pie. 1 pint of scalded milk, 2 eggs, speck of salt, speck of nutmeg. Beat the eggs. Add sugar, salt, and nutmeg. Stir in the scalded milk. Line the plate with the pastry rolled thin, having it extend over the edge of the plate about 1/4 an inch. Pinch this up around the edge and pour in the custard. Bake in a moderate oven about 30 minutes. Squash pie. 1 1/2 cup of squash, 1 cup of hot milk, 1/2 a cup of sugar, 1/2 a teaspoonful of salt, 1/4 a teaspoonful of cinnamon or nutmeg, 1/8 a teaspoonful of ginger, 1 egg. Use a dry, mealy squash. Stew and sift it, then add the other materials. Bake 30 minutes or till it puffs up all over. Lesson 10. A plain 3-course dinner illustrating principles in the preceding lessons. Menu. Lamb broth with rice. Roast shoulder of lamb. Creamed onions. Breadsticks, mashed potatoes, lettuce and tomato salad, ice cream, sponge cake. Have the shoulder boned and rolled and make the broth from the bone. Ices. General directions for freezing. Chop the ice very fine. Use coarse salt. Use 1/4 salt and 3/4 ice. Put the can into the pail. Cover the can. Put in a layer of ice, then one of salt, till within an inch of the top of can. Pour in the mixture to be frozen. Fit on the crank and turn slowly. As the ice settles, add more ice and salt. When the crank begins to turn hard, wipe carefully the top of the can and remove the dasher. Put a cork in the top of the cover. Pour off the water from pail and fill the pail with ice and salt. Cover with a thick cloth and set away till ready to serve. Vanilla ice cream. 1 quart of milk, 1 pint of thick cream, or 1 quart of thin cream and 1 pint of milk, 1 cup of sugar, 1 tablespoonful of vanilla. Scald the milk and cream. Dissolve the sugar in it. When cool, add the flavoring and freeze. Chocolate ice cream. Melt 2 squares of chocolate with 2 tablespoonfuls of hot water. Add 2 tablespoonfuls of sugar. When smooth, add to the above recipe and freeze. End of Elementary Lessons in Cookery by Mary L. Wade. Read by Betty B.